Professor Dumbledore made his way to the stage and waited until all eyes were on him. "I would like to welcome you all to Hogwarts Halloween Ball," he stated loudly. "I hope you all have a wonderful evening and enjoy the music of this band, which obviously needs no introduction," he told the students while gesturing to the weird sisters with his good hand. He gracefully stepped off the stage and tried to make himself as unobtrusive as possible. Myron stepped forward and grabbed the magical mic from the stand. "Who's ready to rock?" he shouted. A sea of cheers was the only reply he got. "All right! Whenever we get to play at Hogwarts, we always like to start things off with an old favorite," he told the crowd. He looked back at his band and counted off before launching into "Let's Do the Hippogriff." After that, they did 2 more fast songs that had everybody dancing. Several people, including Professor McGonagall, laughed while they watched the Doctor dance with his usual lack of style or grace. He seemed not to notice and kept on enjoying himself on the dance floor. The music died down, and Myron waited for the Great Hall to quiet down. "Our next song is a slow number, so find that special person you want to dance with," he advised. Hermione took the Doctor's hand possessively. "Before we sing the next number, I want to dedicate it to a very old friend of ours. If it hadn't been for him, Weird Sisters would have never been formed," he said, the gratitude evident in his voice. "This one's for you, Doctor," he stated and pointed down into the crowd. The Doctor's coolness level rose sharply for those who were fans of the Weird Sisters. It almost returned to the level it had been before they had seen him dance. Myron nodded to the band, and the band began to play.
Traveling man, such secrets to be told. Alien man, running from the days of old, out of his world, with nothing left to lose. Traveling man, coming down to rescue you. You're hard to find, Time Lord. Too busy saving everything to stop.
Hermione listened to the words of the song as she put her arms around the Doctor's neck. He put his hands on her waist, and they danced slowly to the music. He looked into her eyes and gave her a shy smile.
The traveling man will save the day. The traveling man will keep you safe, even if he has to die 507 times. The traveling man will save the day. Waiting so long for something to reprieve. Gallifrey man, of his tragic history, such a sharp mind, but broken are his hearts, engines in gear, time to put things in the past.
Ginny was dancing as close to Harry as she possibly could. Harry was hesitant at first and kept glancing over at the Doctor to make sure he wasn't upset at how close they were. He relaxed significantly when he saw the Doctor was focused entirely on Hermione. Taking advantage of the situation, Harry leaned in for a quick snog.
There comes a time, Time Lord, when every boy must learn how to dance.
Hermione moved closer to the Doctor and rested her head on his chest. This caused him to adjust his hands and left him holding her, his hands on the small of her back.
The traveling man will save the day. The traveling man will keep you safe, even if he has to die 507 times. The traveling man will save the day. Every Everybody knows that everybody dies, but nobody knows it like him. I think all the lights would drain out of the skies if he ever gave up trying. Just this once, everybody lives. The traveling man will save the day. The traveling man will keep you safe. Even if he has to die 507 times, the traveling man will save the day.
The song ended with a flash of blue light from Myron's eyes, causing those who weren't time travelers to forget the lyrics to the song. Hermione didn't notice the flash, or anything else for that matter. The only thing she could think of was the doctor. She decided to take Ginny and Ace's advice and led the doctor out the back door of the great hall that led to a balcony that looked over the lake below. After a few moments, neither of them said anything. They just enjoyed the cool breeze and the feeling of holding each other's hand. Hermione looked over the balcony and at the reflected moonlight that bounced back at them.
"Are you having a good time, sweetie?"
she asked softly. The doctor froze for a moment, and then he let go of Hermione's hand. He took a step back from her and stared, shock written all over his face. "What? What did you just call me?" he stuttered. Hermione frowned and cursed the book she had read. It had suggested using a term of endearment as a way to help snare a boyfriend.
"Should have known not to use a book written over a century ago,"
she mentally scolded herself.
"I called you sweetie,"
she answered.
"I'm sorry, Doctor. I read this book on relationships, and it suggested using a pet name,"
she explained.
"I didn't mean to anger you,"
she pleaded. This was definitely not turning out how she hoped it would. You didn't anger me, it's just," the doctor started to say. Hermione had stepped to the side in nervous energy, and the moonlight caught her frizzy hair just right. In the near dark, he finally recognized her profile. No. It can't be. I mean, that's impossible. How? He stammered. "What in the name of the vortex are you doing here?" he demanded.
"I go to school here, remember?"
Hermione replied. She was beginning to worry that her attempt to snare him had left him unhinged. The doctor reached into his pocket quickly and drew out his sonic screwdriver. Switching it on, he waved it in Hermione's direction, causing her to take a cautionary step backwards. The doctor flicked his wrist, and the end of the screwdriver extended, letting him take a better look at the readings. The DNA scanner showed that Hermione was mostly human, with just a touch of Time Lord DNA. There was only one person in the universe who had that particular combination. "It is you!" he muttered breathlessly. "At least, I think it's you," he added. The doctor had to make sure Hermione was really the person he thought she was. There was only one sure test that he could think of off the top of his head. At its best, Gallifrey could be described as a dangerous place to live. At its worst, it had been called a hellish death trap. Many poisonous plants had taken it upon themselves to mimic their non-poisonous counterparts perfectly. They both looked and smelled so much like the non-deadly variant that animal life on the planet had to develop a way to keep from keeling over at an alarming rate. The answer had been in their sense of taste. A slight difference in alkalinity levels was sometimes the only difference between death and a rather tasty treat. The race that would one day become the Time Lords was no exception. The doctor had used his heightened sense of taste for a wide variety of things, like determining the chemical makeup of lacquer applied to wood paneling, to telling how old a shed was based on the oxidation of the paint. He decided to put that super sense to use once again. The doctor took Hermione by the shoulders and pulled her to him. He leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. When he parted his lips, Hermione did the same. She welcomed his tongue into her mouth and savored the sensation it created in her. After a moment that seemed way too short, the doctor broke off the kiss, smiling like a fool. She tasted just the same as she did when she had kissed him for the first time, from his perspective, at the Storm Cage Containment Facility. Hermione was dazed from her first real kiss with the doctor. It was more than she had dreamt of, yet she felt like it could be even better.
Practice makes perfect,
she thought happily. Her happy days ended when she caught movement on a balcony 2 floors above them.
Doctor, someone's watching us,
she whispered urgently. The doctor turned around and looked up. If anything, his smile got even bigger. He recognized the woman wearing the white coat with frizzy hair immediately. The woman blew a kiss to the doctor.
Do you know her?
Hermione asked him, never taking her eyes off the strange, but oddly familiar woman. Oh yes, the doctor replied. She is the one woman to whom I've given both my hearts to completely, he told her. Although, to be truthful, I hadn't realized that I loved her until just now, he added. He felt Hermione tense up next to him. Now be polite and wave to yourself, he suggested.
Wait, what?
Hermione stammered. The doctor pointed to the woman on the balcony. That's you from the future. You've been using a different name so you wouldn't ruin the surprise for our first meeting, he tried to explain.
Let me get this straight,
Hermione stated.
That woman up there is a future version of me?
She inquired. The doctor only nodded. Hermione thought about this for a moment before her brain finally processed a bit of information that had been waving its hand, trying to get her conscious mind's attention.
Did you just say that you loved me?
She pressed. The doctor gave her a shy, boyish grin. I suppose I did. Didn't I? He replied. Hermione grabbed him and pulled him in for another electrifying kiss. The doctor didn't resist like he had at Stormcage. He was starting to rather enjoy these kisses immensely. River Song turned away from watching her love snogging a younger version of herself with a contented sigh. She walked through the door she had just unlocked and made her way towards the room of requirement. She was startled when Professor Dumbledore stepped out from an alcove. Hello, Hermione. What brings you back to our hallowed halls? He inquired politely. River knew she shouldn't have been surprised by her old headmaster recognizing her, but it still came as a bit of a shock.
Feeling nostalgic, I suppose,
she replied. Professor Dumbledore rubbed his dead hand with his good one. Yes, I suppose we all get that way from time to time, he assured her. He noticed her looking at his hand sadly. I know that I'm dying, so you don't have to worry about letting that spoiler out of the bag, he chuckled. She was about to say something, but he held up his good hand. Shush, Hermione. We both know there isn't time for that, he told her. Before you go, I want to ask a favor of you, he said softly.
You know I will, Professor Dumbledore,
River replied. Even though she knew he hadn't been as pure as she had thought when she first started Hogwarts, he was still a man she owed much to.
What is it that you want me to do?
She inquired. You will know what to do when the time comes, Dumbledore responded. I can give you a hint, he offered. He leaned over and whispered something in her ear. River rocked back as if she had been slapped.
You bastard!
She swore. Perhaps, Dumbledore replied before turning and walking away. Author's note. The song used in this chapter is called Traveling Man. It is from Chameleon Circuit's second album, Still Got Legs. It was written by Alex Day and is available on both iTunes and from Amazon.com.